Everybody is saying that ICE needs to have cameras, on their vests. I'm all for that. I think the best thing that ever happened to the cops is we put cameras on their vests, because everybody before was like, oh my gosh, look you know what? He broke my arm. Your arm doesn't even look broken. Do you have it in a cast? Have you had an x-ray? No, he broke my arm. I'm telling you, he broke my arm. Cop wasn't even around. Whatever it was. Put cameras on cops. That's great. Put them on ICE. Great. We'll know the story. It keeps them true, and it keeps the lying liars away from the press, because we improved that didn't happen. Okay. But I got to thinking, everybody wants this on the cops. Well, politicians are kind of, cops in suits. They're the ones that are supposed to be policing our laws, policing our Constitution, make sure there's no enemies, foreign or domestic. That's what they're sworn to do. They take an oath to protect that and to serve that. What do the cops take? They take an oath to protect and serve, right? So why is nobody watching the watchers? My local cop has to wear a vest. ICE going to have to wear a vest. The gas station, the grocery store, the front porch. Dogs have cameras now. But the people with the most power, the ones who have who operate that power, operate the systems, they're on the honor system. Honor in Washington, D.C. is 2 words, not 1. Do you understand what I'm saying? There's no honor there. So here's a radical thought. Why don't we flip this around? Cops wear cameras because we say power requires accountability. Great. Let's finish the sentence here. If you hold public office, you wear a camera. And not at your speeches, not during your press conferences, all the time. I mean, not all the time. I mean, you're going to, there are times you're not going to wear a camera. Congressional body cams, cabinet level GoPros, senators with a blinking red light that says, yeah, remember, Senator, we're watching. You want to meet a lobbyist? Great, smile, you're on candid camera. You want to negotiate, a bill at midnight? Great, America's watching, the uncut version. You want to say, this isn't how the real world works. Perfect. Could you define the real world, please? Because the one I live in has and demands receipts. The one you live in, I don't think is the real world, because it never demands receipts from any of you. Yeah, but that's extreme. Really? That's extreme. I think we've already decided that extreme was acceptable, haven't we? And if cameras are extreme, then why do we have them for traffic stops? Why do we have them for classrooms? We decided it for every American who doesn't have power. Why does transparency suddenly become unreasonable the moment it reaches the top? Why? You're watched in everything you do. Here's why. Imagine what would happen. Half of Washington would suddenly go, you know what? I'm too old for this job. I should retire. I'm going to let some of these youngsters in. That's the first thing that would happen. Another quarter would suddenly rediscover prayer. And the rest would spend the first month just asking interns, is this thing on? Corruption would need to be prosecuted. It would die of embarrassment. Here's the thing. Corruption thrives in the shadows. It hates daylight. It hates context. It hates timestamps. You wouldn't need hearings anymore. Just hit rewind. I never said. Here it is at 2:14 p.m., sir. Remember, right after the lunch fundraiser, you said this. I mean, protect privacy. Sure, bathroom breaks, no camera. I don't want it. Family time, off camera. But you're governing, red lights on. You're doing deals, red lights on. You don't get secrecy and authority. Pick one. What do you say? Pick one. I'll give you national defense, but I would like to make sure that we define national defense, because we've also redefined secrecy and top secret. Top secret. Says here that he used 3 napkins while he was in the congressional lunchroom. Let's classify that as secret, please. Everything's classified as secret now. So let's look at what's actually needs to be secret and what doesn't. It's amazing how quickly behavior changes when you know you're being watched. Do you know that most people, when they steal from their company, they don't steal because they're bad people. Really, honestly. Most people, when they start stealing from their company, it's not because they're bad people. It's because no one's watching them. And so something just happens to people when they're not being watched. They think people don't care. I don't know about you, but I care deeply about our country. I care deeply about the Republic. I care deeply about all of the crime that is going on. And I'm not talking about on our streets. I'm talking about the crime, that's happening in daycare centers. The crime that is happening in our government with our own money. Why would you go steal money from a bank when the bank has limited amounts of cash? Why wouldn't you steal it from the federal government and the taxpayers? That's where the real money is. You look at Ocean's 11. We're going to go in and we're going to rob all the casinos. Rookies. Did you see what they did in Minnesota? What they're most likely doing in California, New York, and maybe even your state? I got to tell you, bills would become a lot shorter. Language would become much, much clearer. Deals would suddenly make sense. You wouldn't go, wait a minute, what happened? How did that happen? Why did they pass that? That makes no sense at all. Oh, no, it would make perfect sense. Here you are at 1:01 a.m. Okay? Phrases like unintended consequences, I think, would go extinct. The only thing radical that we need is radical transparency. And radical transparency doesn't require better people. It just requires visible people. This is the thing that people misunderstand. When our founder said, this Constitution, this system of government is wholly inadequate for a non-religious and non-moral people. If you're religious and if you're irreligious and not a moral people, you can't have freedom. You just can't, because you're screwing things up. You're stealing all the time. You're cutting the line. You're trying to get away with stuff. But if you're a religious and moral people, all of a sudden you have a governor on yourself and you go, no, that's wrong. I can't do that. That's wrong. We need that governor back. But until we get that governor back, maybe cameras are a good way. Our founders didn't assume that people would be angels. They knew the opposite. They built a system designed to survive humans. Humans, when they're left to their own devices, when they're left alone, when they're unwatched, when they have access to money and power, they almost always go bad. What's broken in America is not the Constitution. What's broken in America is the distance between power and the people. Okay? So I guess it sounds funny, politicians wired like cops, a Capitol Hill highlight reel. Man, I'd watch that thing every night. C-SPAN with teeth. Can you imagine? But I'm serious. Nothing restores trust faster than letting people see the truth unfold in real time. That's why, what gave me this idea was I was watching the news a couple of days ago, and I saw that they were saying, body cameras for ICE. And I'm like, I'm fine with that. And then I saw, them arguing in Utah about having cameras in the courtroom for the Charlie Kirk trial. And I'm like, what are you, crazy? You got to have it. You have to. You will create conspiracy after conspiracy after conspiracy. That whole thing has to be wide open. Absolutely, positively. And then I thought, wait a minute, cameras. Why don't we have cameras on everybody? Why don't we have, honestly, if you're a politician, that goes with a job. I don't want a camera on me, then don't run. I know a lot of people that would be like, you can put a camera on me. Most likely until you put a camera on them. Then there's going to be all kinds of exceptions. No. Mm-mm. I'm tired of the spin. I'm tired of the summary. I'm tired of, wait, how did that deal happen? Well, they got behind closed doors. No. Mm-mm. Sunlight. Open the curtains, sunlight. We have the technology to do it today, you know? And you know what? Maybe the camera only goes on when you're near, I don't know, somebody who's a lobbyist. You're out in the middle, you know, you're at a nice dinner with your wife or something, and then a lobbyist, AI detects lobbyist 3 feet from the table, boop, the red light goes back on. Uh-oh, other politician, boop. Uh-oh, reporter, boop. You know what stopped them from sleeping with all the reporters? Red lights. I mean, that red lights kind of defined the district that reporters are in now, but I mean the red light of the camera. That would stop them from sleeping with them. AI is like, oh, you know what? Seems like the proximity to this reporter is awfully close. Seems to get farther away and then closer, farther away, and then closer, farther away, and then closer, farther away, and closer. I know what they're doing in there. Cameras on, corruption has to work a lot harder. And here's the thing. Most of the politicians are too lazy. I say cameras on everybody in Washington.